G'day mates, today's video is my favorite of every single season, my FNCS predictions. Which teams are going to come out on top, who's dropping where, and how are their placements looking coming into this. If you haven't followed competitive or you have been and you just want to recap, this is going to be the ultimate recap of everything that's going on with the main teams right now. As you can see for the length of the video, it is an absolute stacker. Also, we're going to kick it off with some spice. Did Clix and Deyy actually split up as a duo the day before FNCS, and has this caused a snakening with other teams on NA East? So let's talk about, let's just jump into it. Let's start off with the big one, Clix and Deyy. Did they actually split? So Clix tweeted out, lol, I can't believe it, LFD for FNCS, and Deyy tweeted out, LFD or quitting. Now, if this is true, Clix and Deyy have split up the day before FNCS. You literally cannot pick a worse time to split up. Do I think it's real? Most likely not. I'm leaning on 99% no. The main reason being we would have seen a massive snakening of other teams. If Clix or Deyy were actually looking for teammates, we would have seen like 8 other duos splitting up. We would have seen some Game of Thrones level snakenings like we have in previous seasons as everyone started splitting up and finding new teammates, because there are some really good players who right now on their duos are underperforming right before FNCS, and I kind of was expecting a snakening. I was waiting for some big duo to split, and that was just going to cause that massive domino effect of all the other duos snaking and finding new teams. That hasn't really happened. Yes, we did see Dukes and Threats tweet out duo FNCS. I also just 99.9% sure that is just not true. Dukes is the kind of person who would do this. Dukes and Jampa are looking really, really good. Dukes and Threats would also be a double fragger combo, which just almost never works. And I don't think either of these players have a huge desire to IGL. They both play with hard IGLs in Rise and Jampa as well. Yes, Threats and Rise haven't been doing the best. They are, I think, last 2 cash cups, they were 11-1 was the record at Greasy. Kanata and Ages are just absolutely dominating Greasy right now, but I still don't think they would split. I think Threats and Rise would just pick another drop spot if anything, and Dukes and Threats have absolutely no, Dukes and Jampa have absolutely no reason to split. Why would I think maybe Clix and Deyy would split? I think it's pretty obvious to a lot of people who've been watching them play. They haven't been playing to their full potential. They haven't been doing poorly. They just haven't been doing as well as what a lot of people would hope, but FNCS hasn't even started yet. If they're gonna split, I would give it at least until they play 1 week of FNCS, things don't go well, and then they try out qualify 2 and 3 with different teammates. But 99.9% sure, this is an impression farm, but I wanted to at least put it in the video because a lot of people thought it was real. There is over 10,000 likes on Clix's tweet. I know a lot of people who follow Clix maybe don't follow competitive as closely as other people and don't actually know. I didn't want to drag this out and make it a whole video. I'm almost positive it's going to be clickbait. I feel like tomorrow or today, as of you watching this video, Clix is going to go live for FNCS. He's going to be playing with Deyy. He's going to have a laugh and pretend it never happened. Let's jump in with my favorite video every season, my FNCS predictions. Now, I'm going to pick 5 teams that I think are going to do insanely well this FNCS from NA East and EU. I'll also have a bit of a chat about NA West at the end as well. And then I'll pick some underrated teams. And I'm also going to put in the description 2 drop maps for where all the main, like I would imagine, like most likely to make grand final teams are dropping, in case you guys are curious, or maybe there's a team I don't talk about and you want to know where they're dropping. All of that's in there. I've put a lot of effort into this one. Let's jump in with NA East. Now, who are my favorites to win NA East? These are in no order, and I know that's a bit of a cop-out. It's because it's hard, right? We've just had a major update. I would have tried to give you my favorites in order, but with this new update, removing the cards from the game, there has not been enough chance to see some of the teams that I would have liked to put at the top, and that's what scares me. So that leads me perfectly to my first conversation. Bugha and Mero out of Chonkers Speedway, the double FNCS champion, triple FNCS champion now, single FNCS in duo. So they are the reigning duo champ, but they also have 2 trios back-to-back under their belt together as well. Now, obviously, Chonkers Speedway, that's where they won FNCS last season, but that is why I'm concerned, because their main strategy was always getting the Chonkers tire Lambo, because there's 4 of them there every single time, and they would use those to get all the loot at Chonkers because they have to spread really far to get all the coolers. They would sometimes even tank zone for a long period of time, getting all the coolers, using medkits, using floppers, and then they would rotate in, take a fight for their surge, and that was their their key to success. Without the Lambo, because there is no Lambos there now. Remember, cars have been vaulted except for IO cars. There is also one Lambo at Greasy with no tires, which is for a challenge. And there's also a taxi over at Jones's for a challenge. Those are the only cars in the game that aren't IO cars. So Bugha and Mero no longer have the Lambo, and that's what scares me. I don't know how well they're going to do without that. Unfortunately, because they didn't make the last cash cup, the one that was redone, we haven't got to see them even play a set lobby since this change is made. And I know both of these guys aren't scrimming, so I know they haven't even had a chance to play without the Lambos yet, and that's what concerns me. Do I think they're going to qualify? 1,000,000%. They are going to make grands guaranteed, and I would be incredibly shocked not to see a top 5. But them getting the back-to-back win in FNCS, I'm a little bit more nervous now. I'm sure they're going to have an ace up their sleeve, and when you're as skillful as Bugha and Mero and you're as smart as Bugha and Mero, they will figure out a different strategy that doesn't rely on the Lambos. But when you're talking NAEs, you need to have everything on point on the day, and they do have a few weeks to figure it out now because they have 3 qualifiers that don't instantly qualify, semifinals, then grand finals. They got time to figure out what their new strategy is going to be, but I want to see just how important this Lambo was to them, because taking cars out of the game has affected a lot of teams, but instantly, as soon as that happened, even Bugha tweeted out a joke about this because he knows that a lot of eyes were on him because that was their strategy. Yes, they're phenomenal players who can rotate through endgame, get refreshes, like they know what they're doing, but early game, they're dropping edge map at a drop that takes so long to loot. Chonka's Speedway is spread out so far. The coolers go really, really wide, so you need fast mobility to get all that loot, to get the full effectiveness of the drop, and then rotate. And also, there has been a lot of teams dropping Chonkas, so I'm not entirely sure they're going to get the whole thing uncontested in finals, but that's the question. If they're contested in their edge map and someone takes a fight against them, how are they going to go? And that is going to be my assumption through all of this, except for teams I'm going to talk about like Ages and Canadas, who we know are contested. I'm predicting them as if they're uncontested. If they get contested, like we saw with Aqua and Epic Whale last season, it's going to really hurt even the favorites. Next, I'm going to follow up with Scented and Cold, because out of Sleepy Sound, they're in a very, very similar boat. They have come first, and 15th in their Cash Cup finals so far this season, but that's the thing. They also relied heavily on a Lambo they had every single game at Sleepy. I was talking last season about how Scented was way ahead of the meta, using cars to rotate endgame, boxing up cars. I made a whole video talking about why Scented is so dominant right now, and I was pointing towards them being the only person using the Lambos really, really well and getting them to endgame, and then even using them into rotating zones. That was before the blowtorch. So when they took the blowtorch out, I wasn't worried about Scenter's chances of doing well with the car, but now they've taken the car away, it does concern me. And their 15th in the Cash Cup was the most recent one after the cars were taken out of the game. That has been their worst set lobby finals performance so far. I did have Scented in my chat though when I was doing a viewing party on my Twitch channel, and he was talking about how it was just all South zones. They did get 5 South zones out of 6 in that finals, which is a lot of South zones. And I said, well, look, if you had the car, you'd probably be able to get there though, right? And he said, look, even if we had the Lambo, that still would have been very, very rough for us with those zones. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, if you're dropping edge map, you're going to have a Sleepy. Is just like Chonka's. One's far north, one is far south. They are both going to be very, very open to bad zones, heavily affecting them. Now they no longer have the vehicle. They are such a scary team that yet again, I believe they will be able to figure out a strategy. And one thing that does go into their favor is now there's not as many vehicles in the lobby. Running ulti low ground, I mean like literally on the very bottom layer, feet on the ground, which is what Scented does best, is a lot stronger. While the vehicles have been in the game, you just haven't been able to go ultra low ground because you're just having semi trucks mow through your box constantly. It was like the riskiest layer to be. I'd rather be on high ground in caddy launcher meta than on low ground in the truck meta. It was just an absolute nightmare. So that does buff them, and we saw that a little bit when we were watching EU. I was watching Kami and Setty because they're an ulti low ground team as well, and with less vehicles in lobby, they popped off massively in the most recent Cash Cup. But again, they have the IO car, so they can use the vehicle to get to those end games just like Scented and Cold used to. Then they can play the ulti low once all the vehicles are gone. Scented and Cold aren't so lucky. Their drop spot didn't keep a car, but it's Scented and Cold. I'm not going to say that both Bugha and Mero and Scented and Cold are nothing without vehicles. It just puts a bit of a question mark on what were my 2 absolute favorites going into this FNCS. The most consistent team right now on NA East, and by far the most underrated. I was talking about how insane they were last season, one of the most consistent teams, and almost no one was talking about them. Now people finally are, because they've pulled off a first, second, and second in the 3 cash cups they've played in so far. Joji and Rocaine out of Rocky Reels. Now remember, they came first and second in 2 in a row. Remember how we had the cash cup that was replayed recently? They came first, then they came second. They are looking absolutely insane. They almost clutched up the win as well on the back of, I think it was Rocaine solo clutching in their 6th game. They're playing super well, and what makes me really happy to back them and get very excited for the fact that they might take this FNCS, or at the very least will get a top 3 or top 5. They've now done it since their drop spot got nerfed. Rocky Reels had a blimp, and I was worried to see how they would go once the blimp was gone. They won the cash cup with the blimp, then came second in the cash cup without the blimp, and it was close enough where I'm sure that if they had, one more game kind of go their way, they would have won it. It's not like they got absolutely demolished, so the second place is so much worse than first place. They have been so consistent last season and this season from the same drop spot. They know how to rotate every single zone, and again, they did it without the blimp. So I am very, very excited to look and see how Joji and Rocaine do, because I would love to see them perform. And remember, Rocaine also won the cash cup with dubs when Joji couldn't play. So Rocaine is just something else right now. Last up on my list, Acorn and Edgey from North Tilted Towers. They're not getting all of Tilted, and Tilted's a bit weird right now because there's like teams go north, south. They also go the blimp, and a lot of the times Acorn and Edgey get the blimp. It's all a little bit weird, but they are looking absolutely phenomenal right now. They've placed 5th in the 5th, 6th, and 19th in East, and they played 5th on the West Cash Cup. Now, one of these ones definitely has an asterisk. Last week, they were set to actually break the point record. Their first 3 games were absolutely insane. Then they got pushed a lot more aggressively at Tilted in game 4 and 5, and then game 6 they switched up the drop spot. So they were set to easily take the cash cup win, arguably potentially a point record. I think they had 150 points in 3 games. It was ridiculous, but that is what scares me. Tilted Towers is a very tumultuous drop. There's lots of teams there. There's lots of things that can go crazy. They're up against Ocus and Nut, which is going to be a big scary team to verse on spawn, and they seem to like to play dirty. Ocus and Nut took one of them out in the cash cup, and they sat on the cards. They were not letting them go. So this wasn't like we got our surge, we got our points, we'll rotate out now, let them get the reboot and come back. No, they camped the cards. So I'm a little bit scared for Acorn and Edgey with that one as well, but their placements when they make it off spawn is insane. I'm pretty sure their average placement right now when they make it off spawn is like 1st or 2nd. Like, I think I went back into the math in like the last 7 or 8 games they made it off spawn. It was like 1st, 2nd, 1st, 3rd, 1st. Like, absolutely ridiculous. The problem is making it off spawn. If this team makes it off spawn, let's say in a grand finals, 12 games, they make it off spawn at 8, 9 games, I think they're going to win FNCS. But can they do that at a drop spot that's going to have a lot of teams? Now, I'm missing some big teams. Let me run through some of the other teams I got an eye out for. Make sure you guys are across them as well. We got DJ and Iomzo dropping North Command Cavern. Their biggest issue, of course, is going to be getting it uncontested. Command Cavern is just... it's going to be hard for almost any team to do well from there. On EU, a bit of a spoiler, I will talk about Aqua and Veno because they are just so consistent out of Command Cavern. It has so much loot, but there's like 9 teams going there, some cash cups. And yes, it has enough loot for 9 teams, but especially in an FNCS, a 2-day format where day 2 teams start getting more desperate for points and you're up there on the leaderboard, they're going to aggressively push them. And that's what scares me. If they can get it and they get, again, same as I just said with like Acorn and Edgey, like 9 games where they make it out on spawn healthy, they are going to absolutely pop off. They've come 3rd and 11th in cash cups so far. So they've made it work, but I want to see a little bit more consistency first. We have Illest and Jack out of South Tilted Towers. That's another team that is going up against Acorn and Edgey. Same issue. They're contested at Tilted. You throw Ocus and Nut in there, who also been playing phenomenally well. They are 3 teams that are very, very good right now. And if any of them had a part of Tilted and you could guarantee me the other teams wouldn't fight them, I would put them in my top 5. But so far, Illest and Jack, Ocus and Nut have been doing very, very well, but Acorn and Edgey have been coming out the most consistent from Tilted. Jamper and Dukes, which is Logjam Lumberyard, which scares me a little bit because of how well they're going to go with zones. If we do get a whole bunch of fast south zones, it will scare me a little bit. They've gotten a 4th and a 15th in the cash cup. The biggest issue is they haven't played that many cash cups. Dukes did go to the NRG event in LA. Jamper also went to the FNCS Media Day, so they haven't had that long playing together, which I haven't got as much to go off on this one. one of the most underrated teams right now. You guys always ask me, Aussie, who's the underrated team going into FNCS that almost no one is talking about? And this isn't like, you know, Joji and Rocaine underrated. I'm talking like almost no one is talking about. Death and Tabney, or Death and Coney Owner. You've probably seen Coney Owner on the leaderboard. Tabney has been playing really, really well in duos with Death, but also in solos. They came 2nd and 14th in the Cash Cup so far. Their biggest problem is going to be getting unconned. The main team that's contesting them is Stretch and Commandment, which is a bit of a question mark. Stretch and Commandment have gone a little bit dark right now. Don't really know exactly what's going on with them, but they always turn up the heat for FNCS. Remember last FNCS, everyone was flaming me for picking Stretch and Commandment as one of my favorites to do well, and they qualified. Didn't they win the first week? I think they won the first week. So it's going to be interesting because this season they're even more quiet. I know literally nothing about Stretch and Commandment right now coming into this one, but it's Stretch and Commandment. And last up, the last one on my list to look out for is going to be Slacks and Clarity. And again, they're also going Logjam Lumberyard, which scares me a little bit for Jamper and Dukes. They've come first in one of the Cash Cups, but they've got 1st, 16th, 17th, and 21st. So playing very, very well, but you'll notice those weeks where they were contested, that's when they didn't get the top performance. When they were uncontested, 1st place. We'll see how they go. We'll see if they can get it unconned. Let's jump in with EU, and again, no real order, but honestly, right now, I feel like Aqua and Veno has to be the top of almost anyone's list. They've done the best this season, but Hen and Queasy won FNCS last season and have also done phenomenal. So I kind of have these two tied. NAE East, I didn't really do in any order, but Aqua, Veno, Hen and Queasy are kind of like on level right now. So let me like make my argument for that. So let's talk about Aqua and Veno first. So firstly, they have placed top 8 in all EU Cash Cups this season. Every single one. They've come 1st, 4th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and they've also won a Middle East Cash Cup as well. They've been playing a lot. Middle East and EU Cash Cups pretty much every week and dominating. Veno's also playing NA with other random people as well. Like just, they have been grinding a lot, and currently they are dominating south side of Covert. They land on the slope truck, rotate in, get the vault almost every single game, play high ground with the pads, and just pop off. Now, the biggest concern is they are contested by Tayson and Thomas, but they've been contested by Tayson and Thomas in these Cash Cups when they've placed top 8. I think they've been contested by Tayson and Thomas once, maybe twice, and I know they've been contested by Tayson and Bugha recently when they won the Cash Cup. Obviously, Thomas was sick, Bugha was filling in, Tayson and Bugha with a random teammate. They're never going to do as well, so I'm not going to count that one. But the other times they have been contested by Tayson and Thomas, they've still placed top 8. This is a very, very good team who has insane jobs for the south side. They get down first almost every single time, and that's pretty much what this comes down to. It's a huge 50-50 who gets down first. A lot of times Tayson has to pull off and he loses the kind of south areas outside of Covert and starts swinging east, but more often than not, Veno and Aqua take it. And I did say they play high ground, but they're not one-dimensional. They know how to play mid-ground layers as well, but they just get such phenomenal loot with the launch pads. They love going for the perfect pad high ground takes. Aqua has always been one of the most dominant high ground players in the world, if not the most dominant. Paired out with Veno, who learnt from Aqua and has continued that in his own right, they are still looking insane. And I would love to see Aqua win an FNCS after all this time. So gonna be my first, if not second pick. Now, Hen and Queasy, the one you've got to follow up with this. Hen and Queasy are obviously the first favorite, if not the second. They won the last FNCS, and this season they've also won 2 Cash Cups, a 12th and a 16th. And one of their Cash Cups was ridiculous. I talked about it in its own video. They went from 60 points to 182, I think it was, in 2 games. They got like 120 points in 2 games, getting back-to-back wins. Oh no, a win and a second place. Just ridiculous. Only Hen and Queasy could do that. And when they've won the FNCS, that has to count for something because they're also still in form right now. They haven't played as many events as well. So as much as I talk about how well Aqua and Veno have done across the consistency, remember, Hen and Queasy got flown out to LA for the NRG event, so they missed a lot of time for that. They also went to the media day in Copenhagen, which Veno did not go to, so they have missed days as well. So I would argue if they were home and they were playing, they probably would have made it to every single Cash Cup and done insanely well as well. They do have the 12th and 16th though, where Aqua and Veno have been that bit more consistent. So that's it. What do you take? Last season's FNCS and showing they can win an FNCS together, or do you take the consistent format this season? Remember, it's Cash Cups versus FNCS. I'll let you be the judge, but they have to be the 2 favorites coming into this FNCS for EU. Sorry, I should have said Hen and Queasy are also dropping on north side of Sleepy. I mean, I think almost everyone knows that by now, but in case you didn't, that's the drop spot they won FNCS with. They're still going there. Now, the next three aren't in any real order. All of them are looking absolutely insane. And I'll start off with Decryptos and Rezon because I'm talking about Sleepy. We now have the south side of Sleepy team. This is a brand new formed team. They've only played in 2 Cash Cups together since forming, and they came second in both of them. They are playing insanely well. Like I said, south side of Sleepy, which isn't a ridiculously good drop. The one thing that I do love is Rezon has been so positive on the timeline about how much fun he's having with the game right now. Taking vehicles out is one of the best things they did. The game is so good right now. They just look really insane. They obviously are notably getting coached by Destiny Jesus as well, which has had insane performances in the past, especially in FNCS Grand Finals. So I've got an eye out for this team, and I'm really excited to see how Rezon does, because whenever we've talked about Rezon, it's always usually been with Noah Riley, Vidil. You kind of like lump those 3 in together, and usually they're playing with each other in different kind of arrangements. Rezon and Vidil, then we have Rezon, Noah Riley, Vidil. The fact that we have Decryptos and Rezon just completely left field there. We brought the Frenchman in. I'm really excited for this team. You probably thought I forgot about them. I could already see you guys in the comments going crazy because Malibuca has won a lot of fans in the last couple seasons. Malibuca and Merstach. They are both looking so insanely good right now. Second, 4th, and 7th in their Cash Cups so far. I believe Malibuca is still the highest PR so far this season, dominating in solos, duos, and multi-region as well, not just dominating EU, popping off in so many different regions too. The biggest concern here is they are going covert, and that's the part that scares me. Command Cavern. It's just so many teams. Like, look at this on the map. We have Anas and Pink, Phoenix and Joe, Noah Vidil, Ortmo and Teeny, Malibuca Merstach, Tayson Thomas, Veno, Aqua. That is not just a lot of teams, that is a lot of phenomenal teams, and there's so many moving parts. That's what scares me. This is just going to depend on how FNCS Grand Finals go. How many teams are there? What are the teams doing? Are they going north, south, dropping high, dropping low? It's just a big question mark. But with this kind of consistency so far out of Command Cavern, you can't count them out. I am so excited to see Malibuca potentially win his first FNCS with Merstach as well. Again, I feel a bit bad that I focus so much on Malibuca. He's had such an inspirational story over the last couple seasons. I'm sure Merstach doesn't take any offense to it, but I love to see this team win FNCS, and I truly think they can. If they start off hot, if they get on a streak, they're going to go crazy. And this is the team that I think even in an FNCS Grand Final could easily drop 15, 20 bombs. Like, that's what they do best. If they get good loot, they make endgame, even if it's maybe only 6 or 7 times, but they have like big Malibuca Merstach level games, they could easily walk away with it. Of course, the Become Legends duos, Setty and Kami, have to be on this list. So far in Cash Cups, 3rd, 5th, and 8th, they are the new BL duo, and they're looking ridiculous. Kami dropping Teak really concerned a lot of people. People were very confused, but when you drop someone you've been doing really well with, but then you're dropping them for your ex-trio mate, who the 3 of you did phenomenal with, a lot of people understood it. And Setty is, to this day, one of the best harpers in the world, has such a good endgame sense for where to put players, and that's exactly what they've been doing. Like I touched on when I was talking about NA East, they are very big at utilizing the IO cars right now. They have, of course, the Kami split. This is Kami split 2.0. If you guys didn't know, this is now on the new chapter 3 map. They still found a ridiculous split drop, and they still get a guaranteed IO car every single game. The map doesn't quite show it here, but Setty and Kami actually drop up on top of the little antenna area just near Tilted, and they get the IO car from there, which is instrumental in their end game. And that's kind of what scares me though. If someone tries to take that, or someone plays aggressively for it because a lot of people want those IO cars, that's where it's going to start to get scary. Because right now we have Savid's team and Naku's team both fighting over the area just northeast of Tilted, but if they're uncontested, it would make a lot of sense for one of them to drop on that IO car, same as Setty Kami do, and then drive it over to their loot spot. It will create this weird dynamic of like one dropping, then maybe the other team double drops and like 50-50s, the other team. It could get messy. That's my only concern. But right now, like I said, this team has been heavily buffed by the nerf of the cars because they still get one, but it means endgame there's only like maybe one vehicle on rotating zones if it's not them, and they can play the low ground like they do best. They're going to be a very exciting team to look out for, and they've already proven they can handle the pressure. They've won FNCS, what, 3 seasons ago now as a trio. They can definitely do it. I'm kind of cheating this one a little bit. I'm going to include it like in my top 5, or maybe I'll make them like my super underrated team or my dark horse team like Death and Tabney. And it feels weird saying underrated or dark horse when they just won a cash cup. It is of course Kiduoo and Flickzy. The reason why I say that though is almost no one is talking about them, and I feel like if big players start placing really well and they don't make content, a lot of people don't know about them, I always want to throw out a big shout out for them to make sure people start paying attention, because I love to see Kiduoo and Flickzy pop off this season. They have had a 1st, 8th, and 10th, so 2 top 10 placements as well. The biggest concern is they are contested by Chapix and Zandy at Synapse Station. If they get it uncontested, I really do think they could get a top 5 and surprise a lot of people this FNCS, but Chapix and Zandy, they've already placed 2nd in a cash cup so far this season. I have a feeling they're going to make grands as well. Both these teams are probably going to make grands, and both of them, it looks like, are going to contest each other. So a little bit scared to see how that goes, but I really want to throw them in because despite winning a cash cup, I feel like people just still aren't talking about them. Now, I know you're already in the comments freaking out at me. Aussie, you didn't say Benji and Savage. I know, but you just got to look at their placements right now. Like, come on. I love Benji and Savage. You guys know. I even hung out with Benji recently at the NRG event. Like, I love Benji and Savage. They're probably my favorite duo in the world, but their placements just aren't there to put them in a top 5. If you have them in your top 5 right now, you're either holding on to just the legacy of how insane they've been in the past, or you're fanboying and letting clout blind you. I hope they pop off. I would love nothing more than to see them pop off, and they could do it. It's Benji and Savage, but they've come 10th, 20th, 23rd, and 30th. So they're qualifying for finals consistently. They're dropping south side of Tilted, but they're just not getting the placements they need. And they're doing it with Tilted that currently has the blimp that might not have the blimp for FNCS. And you can buy launch pads for 100 gold at Tilted, which they've been walking out with at least 1 or 2 every single game. I want to see Benji and Savage do better more than anyone else. But right now, I can't have them in my top 5, but I still want to talk about them because it's Benji and Savage. I really hope they bring it back this season. Also, we have Janice and Vortex right now going greasy. They came first, I believe, in the first cash cup of the season. They've gotten 11 since, but overall they've been a little bit quiet, so we'll see if they can bring it back. They've proven they can do it once already. Chapix and Zandy, I already talked about at Synapse. Antics and Queasy, they've come 4th in 1 cash cup. Out of Condo, the Frenchmen have played in so many FNCS grand finals. You have to at least mention them, and they've had 1 good placement, so we'll see how they perform. Trulex and Chico getting a 3rd, 18th, and 24th out of Rocky. We've seen how good Rocky can be for Joji and Rocaine. I know it can do it for Trulex and Chico. They are a team that I feel like wants to start making those big high ground plays like they've been known for doing in the past, but there are so many high ground dominant teams in these lobbies, but we'll see how they go. And then last up, Nebs and Kinzel. They've got a 12th, 18th, and 19th, placing very consistently out of North Tilted, but again, just not enough for the top 15. Now, I haven't mentioned a few people as well, and I want to talk about the drop spots. We have Coney. Coney has 4 teams going there, including our OCE boys as well. So I'm interested to see how this one goes. The reason why I have not had Podesai and Snazy up there, despite performing really well in the most recent Cash Cup, getting 2nd place, honestly, probably should have won it if they didn't get the glitch in Game 6. I already talked about that. But when Vortex and Suns figured out their drop spots on day 2, the rematch of that Cash Cup, Podesai and Snazy did not handle it as well. They would take an early game fight, they would clash a little bit, and then they would run. Podesai and Snazy were splitting a lot, leading both teams to do poorly. Back when they were just both going just at each other straight up as well, or when they were going up against Flowiers, whichever team won went on to do really well in the finals. Once Podesai and Snazy started running, there was no winner. They both started losing. So day 1, you could see Suns and Vortex's drops just weren't there. They clearly were getting out dropped. They practiced their drops, came back for the next Cash Cup, and it was far more even on spawns. That one scares me a little bit when you now also again have multiple other top tier teams going Coney. We have Greasy again, Hellfire, and Scram, who have been doing really well. They've now looking great off spawn. They have a 6th and 9th in the last 2 Cash Cups. So if we're talking about teams who could still do well while being contested, Hellfire and Scram is one of them. And I would love to see Hellfire and Scram pop off this FNCS coming as well. So have an eye out for them. Grotto or Covert obviously is just ridiculous on EU. Same as his NAEs. We've already talked about that one, but those are the main drop spots to look out for and the main teams. I hope I did EU justice. I have been studying EU like crazy the last few seasons, and I will be doing viewing parties for all the EU rounds as well on my Twitch channel. Don't you worry. I see you guys in the comments all the time. Aussie, you're watching all the NA West Cash Cups and FNCS. You're watching the games. Put FNCS in the video. I'll talk about FNCS when super exciting stuff happens. And I love watching NA West. It's now my home region. But FNCS always just comes talking about the same few teams. So we'll wait till FNCS kicks off. If things start getting spicy, don't you worry. I'll be including NA West in there. But I really wanted to put a massive amount of effort into EU and NA East because those are the regions where there's just so many teams where honestly it could go any way. Where NA West kind of always feels like it's similar teams. Obviously, Reet and Rex were out of that bubble last season. They're now popping off this season, but we'll see as we go. Don't come at me, my NA West brothers. I know I'm going to be covering it, just not in this video. Now, if you made it this far in the video, you deserve the explanation. Yes, I'm in a different room. I have just driven 9 hours to Calgary. I am still in Canada. I will be here for the next few months. Because I'll be here for a few months, I'm going to make a nice stream room. I know right now you can just see out into the rest of the house. That's because with the door closed, it is the worst echo imaginable. I know it's a blank wall with the door behind me. I'm going to make it look clean. I have just spent 9 hours driving, packing my setup up so I can do FNCS viewing parties tomorrow on Twitch. Check me out, twitch.tv/Aussie Antics. But yes, I'm in a new spot. It's going to look crispy soon, I promise. No one else will know, only you guys who made it to the very end of the video, and you deserve it. All right, guys, it was a long one. That does it for another video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please chuck a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one.